Well, as we mentioned, turnout for people between the ages of 18 and 24 jumped 18 percentage points in the last election compared to 2011 to 57% from 39%. So a lot of young people decided to get engaged last time. We know that now. How many will stay interested this time around? That might depend on whether they think their vote mattered. Now, a lot of people talk to first-time voters when we get into election campaigns. We wanted to try something a little different here, so we've brought in second-time voters to discuss what got them involved in the democratic process in the first place and what might keep them involved. Here in the studio, I'm joined by Lesley Mayhew, Mehdi Bouchentouf, and Katelyn Kornelsen. Welcome to all of you. Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks for being here. Let me start with the very basic of questions, and maybe I'll start with you. What got you involved in the democratic process as a first-time voter before we get into the second-time voter?
Yeah, well, it really, like my father, he really would always read the paper. And so really kind of emphasizing what was happening in the world, saying it was really important to be aware of everything that was going on. Mm-hmm. The democratic process is definitely something that my parents encouraged. They said that, you know, if you really want to, you know, bring change to the world, you have to be the change.
You have to be part of it.
You have to be part of it, exactly. So it was essential as far as my family's concerned.
How about you, Mehdi?
My French teacher actually was an MP, for a two-time MP. So I wasn't necessarily interested in politics up until I took that class. And after class, we'd always be sitting after and talking about the things that are going on in government, explaining to me what happens in the House of Commons, necessarily how you can engage the House of Commons and generally the political process. And that's when I decided to get into political science at my university, and I decided I'm not going to miss any time to vote. I'm always going to vote.
So you got engaged and got engaged quickly. Katelyn, how about you?
Fairly similar to Lesley. My parents we've talked about politics growing up my whole life. We watch the news, so I've just always been interested and was pretty excited to finally be able to vote in an election when the time came. So it was no question for me whether or not I'd be voting.
So you young people, you're the engaged ones. I mean, what's the sense in your peer groups? I mean, does everybody feel the way? I guess what I'm getting at is we saw this spike in the last election, as you know, and I think a lot of people are worried that whatever engagement, whatever happened that prompted young people to get involved, maybe it'll trail off and won't happen again. So what do people around you talk about? Do you sense the same kind of keen interest in voting and taking part in the democratic process?
Well, do you guys want to go first, or? Yeah, go for it.
I think, for me, I've actually started to notice a lot more youth engage in provincial politics rather than federal politics. I'm starting to see a lot more dialogue regarding that, just because I think in status quo, a lot of things are happening in the universities and education system, and I'm starting to see a lot more engagement provincially. I'm not exactly sure what the dialogue is federally, just because the elections are coming up, but I'm starting to see a lot of provincial discussion.
Which I guess speaks to the fact that it's, in a lot of ways, maybe it's the stuff that affects you directly as young people and the things you're doing, students and so on, that makes you focus more on one kind of politics, I guess.
Well, I have a sense, I've been asking, because building up to coming in today, I asked around, kind of got a feel for various friends of mine and people in general, just starting a conversation. It's kind of a mixed amount of people who are really interested, and then there are people who are completely apathetic to it as well. My vote doesn't matter. Well, one person doesn't really make a difference. Well, what you don't realize is that when one person acts, multiple people of that one individual level come together as one large movement. And so people need to realize, well, and I think people are kind of on the fence when it comes to it, because they're still somewhat thinking that their vote doesn't matter.
Let me pick up on that with you, Katelyn. So let's look back. So you're coming up on the federal election. You'll have a chance to vote for a second time. So is it your sense that the vote you cast the first time, did it matter? Are you glad you did it? Did you get what you wanted?
My vote the first time, I think it maybe didn't matter in the sense the person I voted for didn't win my riding, but at the same time, I think it's important to voice your opinion, and I'm kind of the impression that if you don't vote, then you can't complain about the political situation in the country. But I think that for people around me, I mean, studying public policy, I'm obviously surrounded by a lot of people who are very engaged in politics, but at the same time, I'm in various athletic circles, and I know that a lot of those people who are around our same age could probably care less about politics. They don't know the first thing about different political parties, and I think that's actually one big reason why youth don't vote, is they don't know what the different parties actually stand for, and there's a lot of misinformation. So
that's
they feel like
point,
if they can't be informed, then they don't want to vote for something.
So why is that? Does that speak to, do young people want to see a different kind of messaging and outreach and so on from political parties? Are parties, and is the process, Mehdi, reaching you the way you want to be reached, or do you have to do a whole lot of too much work maybe to find out what's going on in the system?
I think most people haven't really bought into any type of messaging and status quo. I think a lot of people that at least I know are really engaged in politics are still waiting to see what party they're necessarily supporting. I think that's the one thing I'm starting to see, is like there's not as much like party allegiance and status quo. Like people are deciding to like vote for different parties.
They're willing to move.
They're willing to move around.
And a lot of, and I think in past generations we would see that, you know, if my father voted this way, I vote that way, my kids end up voting. You don't see that with young people as much.
No, it really comes down to, like, I think what people are really representing when they show their true colors, really, right? When it comes to political allegiance, I don't think it exists as much either. I think people really think that actions speak louder than words when it comes down to it. And if you do your right amount of research and you see where the political parties are kind of directing themselves, then you can make an educated decision at that point, whether or not you previously voted for the Liberal Party or not. I think that that's something that, you know, a lot of people are probably really considering when it comes to this one.
What will decide your vote? It's a big question. It's an open question. And what sort of drives your decision making?
It's a hard question. I think, well, what you were saying earlier is like, previously I voted for the Liberal Party in the last election. Do I feel 100% confident that I would vote for them again? I'm kind of at a crossroads where I'm really kind of just weighing out and observing how various events recently kind of play out. Like I said, actions speak louder than words, and I think it says a lot from what you don't say as well. So I'm kind of on the fence myself, personally.
What about you, Katelyn?
I think I'm really
not so much the not so much the parties you vote for, but what is it that drives you? What are are there the issues or the qualities of leaders or parties or policies messaging that you're looking for?
Yeah, I'm interested in the social programming that the different parties will offer. So whether or not that'll be reflected in any main election campaigns, we'll see. But that might require some digging on my behalf. But
you're willing to do that digging.
Yeah, I'm willing to do
Not everybody
digging,
is, and I think that's an important part of the conversation too, right? Get informed.
Yeah, and also, like, I think it doesn't matter the qualities of the leader representing the party that you vote for, because ultimately, if they win, they're representing the country. So you want the leader to reflect what you, I guess, view as the core value. Yeah.
How
So
about you, Mehdi?
Depends on who they run in my riding. I think at this point, like, none of the party's policy has really stuck out to me where I'm like, I fully buy into this message. So
you pay attention as
to the individual.
100%. Candidates are important.
100%. I think the accessibility to my candidates also very important. Like there are some MPs that are a little bit more accessible than others insofar as the concerns that you bring forward to them are addressed quicker in a more meaningful manner. That's why like I try to attend all the public debates. I try and talk to them afterwards to see like whether or not like they resonate with me. My MP right now is Katelyn McKenna, who's the Minister of Environment, and I think like I like the accessibility of that. Like I think she's a good MP, but I think it depends also. Like if someone like Paul Dewar, like unfortunately passed away, someone like that came out again, someone similar who's his access to the community is like put at the forefront. I'd buy into that for sure.
Let me finish on this. One of the big concerns people have about this election that we maybe haven't seen as much of in past elections is the influence of social media. Not as a bad thing in and of itself, but as a platform by others to be used to maybe manipulate the system, maybe do things to our democracy where some people we're trying to build it up and some people might want to tear it down or manipulate it or influence. You're all, I'm sure, very active on social media. Are you concerned about that? And what's your message to other young voters about what to watch for? How do you know who's talking to you?
Well, I think people, as far as like the voters are concerned, really need to be more open to having a conversation compared to attacking each other. What you'll notice on a lot of social media is someone posts something and then there's almost an extreme emotional response from varying sides. So whether you're more left or whether you're more right, as far as general allegiances go, as far as different topics like immigration or, you know, recent extreme activities throughout the world.
It gets polarized quickly.
It gets incredibly
Especially when you're not
polarized.
sitting in front of each other, you don't have a chance to sort of...
And I think what really people need to realize is your fellow Canadians aren't your enemies. The polarization that you're talking about, it is super prevalent on social media. People are quickly apt to attack each other. And I think if people were more willing to have the conversation and, you know, not buy into ad hominems or certain fallacies and actually present their case as far as, say, if you are in allegiance for a particular political party, well then what are your reasons and what are your facts and how do you say that that's being presented and something that would be otherwise trustworthy or not?
Yeah, maybe just a better conversation, Mehdi, around an issue rather than, you know, the color of a party. Like,
100%. I think in the past, party branding has been like really important just in terms of their messaging. I think it's that like what's happening now in terms of like the information era is that just like quotes are thrown at us, like this politician said this politician said that, but like at the same time, I think we also have to be able to contextualize things, and I think that's the difference between before and now. Whereas before it was like more about like the all-encompassing message, whereas now like a quote by one MP can go viral, and that's because like the quote doesn't make sense out of context. And I think going forward, I think it's up to people to really go in and like look at like the wider narratives that exist, look at the wider messaging, look at what the debates are all about, like, and I think that's what we need to do. I think we can't rely on like what we're just buying into on social media. We actually have to go out of our way and make sure that what we're consuming is true.
Katelyn, maybe a final word to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say I think social media can be a really good way to engage people, but it's important not to take what you see as face value. And maybe I think something I saw more frequently in the past provincial election is there's a lot of infographics comparing party platforms on social media. So maybe that's something you look at and you see and think, wow, that looks really cool, but don't just take it at face value. Go and see if you can confirm or
do some more homework.
Debunk what they're saying.
As if you guys don't already have enough homework.
Yeah.
do some more
it's
homework.
just, you have to be careful what you see and look at who's sharing that and like maybe what their intentions and motivations would be, but really look and fact check the different things on the infographics.
Level, right?
And I mean,
screenshots
going back to what you said, we're all entitled to our own opinions, so you can try and inform your other colleagues and friends without forcing your opinion. I think an informed vote is a valued vote, so even if it's not the same way that you were going to vote, it's still important.
Yeah.
Listen, thank you all for coming to talk about it. I mean, you'll be in charge one day, we'll be fine. Thank you all for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.